It's time for the ultimate error buster tier list. This will be for season 1 of the wedding update. My tier list has 5 tiers: best, good, viable, mid, and garbage. A bunch of people helped me with a tier list in my Discord server, so this tier list is not just my opinion alone. We'll start with the weirdest choice. Wizard goes in the viable tier. Wait, what? Wizard's not in the bottom tier? You may be wondering why a comment's even that high up. Well, in order to understand why, we need to analyze the game mode. The goal of error busters is to complete every single wave and do them as fast as possible. For this season, there's only 2 really difficult waves. The first one's the Silver Bell cookie boss that you fight halfway through your run. The second one is a Black Forest boss at the very end of the run. There's a good reason why Silver Bell's so deadly. They have an HP shield that infinitely regenerates. The thing is, this shield's really hard to break and it regenerates a lot. As you can tell by the battle on the screen right now, I'm kinda cooked cause I can't break it. However, any cookie that zaps can break the shield. Wizard Cookie is in the viable tier because he can zap and break the shield. Dark Cacao and Frill Jellyfish also belong in the same tier. They're really bad cookies in error busters, but they zap, so they're automatically viable. After you kill the Silver Bell boss, it's a good idea to switch them out. There is one cookie that not only zaps but is also super OP. Stormbringer belongs in the best tier because she zaps and does good damage. Damage is really important for clearing waves and also the final boss. The final boss, Black Forest Cookie, is really hard to kill without the right setup. The best way to kill pretty much everything is by using Crumble. He's the absolute best #1 boss killer. In fact, he's so strong that he makes some rare cookies viable. Blackberry and Pancake belong in the viable tier because they pair well with Crumble. They both give him more attack speed, and that's pretty much it. Queen of Man also buffs Crumble. She buffs his attack speed, light damage, and also does some damage herself. For now, I'll put all the attack speed buffers in the viable tier. I'll put Mint Choco in the viable tier cause he also boosts attack speed. However, using Crumble is not the only way to get big damage. Burning Spice is also a top tier DPS. He still kills bosses pretty quickly, and he's really good at clearing waves of enemies fast. He belongs in the best tier. He's a nice alternative to Crumble, but if you use them together, then oh boy, you're gonna kill everything. Another good DPS is Captain Caviar, but the thing is, he has a bit of a problem. His torpedoes are kinda slow. He's also not as good as Creme Brulee or Burning Spice. Those 2 cookies attack really fast, but Captain Caviar's a bit sluggish. He's still one of the best DPS cookies, so he'll be in the viable tier. It may seem like he's low on the list, however, he's actually pretty high. My tier list is not generous or forgiving. You're about to see why. White Lily and Golden Cheese are ancient, so they should be really OP, right? Well, actually, no, they're mid. They both belong in the mid tier. You may be wondering why they're in the mid tier. Well, it's because they're mid. Compared to Creme Brulee, Burning Spice, even Captain Caviar, Shadow Milk, etc., they're simply outclassed, that's all. However, being in the mid tier is not a bad thing, cause there's a lot of high rarity cookies in the garbage tier. Here's a common mistake I see people make. Just because a cookie's a high rarity doesn't mean they're good. The greatest example is Pitaya Dragon. In this game mode, his damage sucks and his skill's way too sluggish. Another example of this would unfortunately be a C40. Dang it. On the other hand, Stardust is alright. He's kinda similar to White Lily and Golden Cheese. He does apply his debuff to the bosses, but I don't know if it actually works or not. For now, he deserves to be in the mid tier. There's also a bunch of high rarity tanks. You know what? Let's switch over to talking about tanks. So you kinda don't really need tanks in this game mode. If you want more survivability, healers are better than tanks for this. I'm gonna put a ton of tanks in the bottom tier. They could be in it for 2 reasons. 1, they don't help DPS cookies like Creme Brulee or Burning Spice do more damage. Or 2, they try to help your DPS cookies, but they're just really bad at it. Fun fact, T-Knight buffs your attack and crit, but he doesn't do anything else useful, so might as well put him in the garbage tier. As you can tell, my tier list is really brutal. There's like a billion cookies in the garbage tier. The good tier is empty right now, so let's work on that. Rebel used to be the best cookie in a previous season, and he's still OP. Space Donut's the Walmart version of Rebel, but they're still really good. Linzer's another OP debuffer. Her skill allows you to nuke bosses. She has a good matchup against the 2 biggest threats, Silver Bell and Black Forest. She's the opposite of a Claire, who's way too slow. If you're trying to speedrun, you don't have enough time to get 4 stacks of weakness with a Claire. Basically, Rebel, Linzer, and Space Donut are good debuffers, so they go into good tier. For this season, a Claire's a mid debuffer, so he goes in the mid tier. It's about time we talk about healers. Mystic Flower in particular. Her placement's kinda subjective. effective. You could argue that she belongs in the best tier. She heals more than everyone else by a long shot. She's pretty much the best cookie when it comes to keeping your team alive. However, you could argue that she belongs in a lower tier. She doesn't really increase your damage that much and she doesn't help you speedrun, so her placement's more based on personal opinion. I'll put her high up in the good tier because I usually pick her over all the other healers. Second place for the best healer's Oakshun cookie. Her heals suck, but she gives the best buffs out of all the healers. I'm pretty sure you can switch her out of the party and she still leaves behind some buffs. I'll put her in the viable tier, one tier below Mystic Flower. Carol cookie is really similar to her, but her buffs aren't as good. Rockstar is also similar, but his buffs aren't that good because you can't give him crit toppings. His healing's really good though, so that makes up for it. Caramel Shoes just like Oakshun, but worse. You can replace her and her buffs still stay on everyone. I'd say her ranking's a little below Oakshun's. We also have Macaron, whose buffs are decent and she heals. I'm gonna put all these healers in the viable tier. They all do multiple things, heal and buff. Wait a second, what about Sparkling Cookie? Isn't he also a healer and a buffer? Well, you see, all he gives is crit. Crit's really easy to get due to the Error Buster buff. Sparkling's healing's also kinda bad. Overall, he's completely different and he's garbage. There's also other healers who don't give damage buffs. You could argue that they're useful, but whenever I see them, I kinda don't want to use them. They're just kinda mediocre compared to Mystic Flower and the healers that buff. If the game forces you to use them, they're alright, but I wouldn't purposely go for them. We covered tanks and healers, so let's go back to damage dealers. Pastry got a huge buff unrelated to her magic candy. She used to be one of the worst cookies, but now she's okay. She belongs in the mid tier and goes well with attack speed. For Clotted Cream, I was really close to putting him in the garbage tier. However, he increases Creme Brulee's light type damage by 35%, and his damage isn't completely useless, so I guess he goes in the mid tier. Nobody has talked about Clotted Cream's light type damage buff in Error Busters yet, so you, the viewer, should try testing it out sometime. For Street Urchin, she increases Burning Spice's fire damage. At first, I was gonna put her in the garbage tier, but I guess she could be in the mid tier. Pitaya also boosts fire damage, but it takes forever for them to do so, and it's way less than Street Urchins. For the damage dealers, I'm cutting it off at Black Pearl. Black Pearl, along with all these other DPS cookies, are going in the garbage tier. They're just bad and not worth using. All the commons and rares I haven't mentioned are also garbage. So there we have it, that's the whole tier list. Oh yeah, Shadow Milk. Well, this one's gonna be the most controversial choice. Shadow Milk's extremely overrated, and he doesn't belong in the best tier. He belongs in the good tier. The reason for this is because Shadow Milk leaves behind a puppet. Then the cookies attack the puppet and it's a complete waste of time. He still does a ton of damage, so he goes in the good tier. So yeah, that's the whole tier list. Why is Shadow Milk so angry? He's angry at me. Insulting Shadow Milk won't have disastrous consequences in the next video, right?